Mr. Walker, how are you today?
I kind of feel like I'm that long-time listener, first-time caller, so thanks for having me. Pat, that's awesome.
Thank you for signing up.
Yeah. I don't remember signing up, but yeah, I'm glad to be here. Really am.
Well, we've got a few minutes here to tell a pretty good story, and in the last 5 years, Nationwide has had pretty incredible growth. Can you share the numbers, though, and kind of reflect on where you were and how far you've come, and talk about Nationwide? And I know this, it's not our father's company. You guys have really come a long way.
Thanks, Pat. I didn't see the Peyton thing coming, by the way, so thanks for that.
Didn't go over as good as I thought it would.
Yeah. And I would agree, and we'll get to a little bit of that, and I would agree to a certain extent, but if I did, then Jimmy would tell Peyton, and then we'd have to pay him more money.
Yeah.
But, so 5 years back.
5 years
Right?
back.
5 years back. So if you look at the growth that we've had in the last 5 years, I'm just so proud of our associates and what's taken place. So 5 years ago, we would have done sales, and I won't get into gap and stat, right? We're unique, we're this enigma, we do property casualty, and we do financial services sales. But 5 years ago, our sales would have been in the $40 billion range, so that's with the B. 2024 concluded at $69.5 billion, so that has been some great growth. But growth without profit doesn't make any sense, right? No money, no mission, and we're a mission-driven company. $1.9 billion of profit. 5 years ago, 2024, $3.152 billion. So what I would share with you, though, is record profits aren't excess profits. Right? So you'll probably hear me talk a little bit about risk-adjusted return on capital. That's about where we want to be, is 3 to 3.5 billion. We take risk for a living. We should get paid for that. That's about the number. From a capital standpoint, and this would be the set-aside to keep the promises that we make, best year that we've ever had in 2024, close to $30 billion of capital that's available to keep promises. That's not our investment portfolio. But the other thing that's really, really important is the available capital or excess capital, closer to $8 billion at the end of the year than what it was, $7 billion. Why is that important? That helps us to drive economic growth in the areas we live and work. Some of you have asked today about the Allstate acquisition. We'd purchased a portion of their company. That transaction hasn't closed, so I can't comment on that. But at the end of the day, it comes back to what this segment's about. It's about people. So 4 of those last 5 years were record years in terms of growth, profits, and capital used wisely. And I think it comes back to our culture. And we have a culture that's important to us, and we'll talk more about that, I think, as well. But our culture has always driven us for almost 100 years. It's about belonging, respect, and fairness. We don't apologize to anybody for that. But at the end of the day, it's the incredible people that we have. So, I hadn't actually been in the role very long. You and I have talked about this before. So it's April 18th, and we, like everybody, April 18th, 2020, we, like everybody else, now, I've only been in the role since October of the prior year. We, like everybody else, hey, we've got the pandemic. We're going to have to send people home. I call my boss, the chairman of Nationwide, who's been in the role like 19 days, and I say, I'm sending everybody home. And he's like, you're doing what? We're sending everybody home. And he's like, who's everybody? I'm like, well, everybody. And he's like, well, how many people is that? 28,000. Really, really long pause, and I thought I could be the CEO of Nationwide that lasts the least amount of time. But here's what I would tell you: people took their laptops, took their automation, went home, and we got work done. So if you think about that 5-year period, 4 of those were record years during that 5-year. It was during the pandemic, right? And so I think the investment we'd made in people, the investment we'd made in automation, allowed us to just have people, work from home. And it's interesting. We look back to April of 2020. Some of the most frequently asked questions we got from our associates, can you help me? I don't have a good chair at home. I don't have the right lighting. And you might laugh about that, But the most important thing from a service to our distribution partners and customers, we'd prepared for that because we're in risk management, and just incredible things took place. By the way, our retention from an employee standpoint in 2024 on a net basis, 5.4%. So we retained almost 95% of our employees last year. We did that each of the last 5 years as well. Our retention today is better than pre-pandemic, and during that time period, 1% unemployment in insurance and financial services. So I've gotten some good feedback about when are you having people come back to work, and I apologize if you've asked me that and I've reacted in a bad way. We were working every single day during the pandemic, and I would offer the numbers that I shared with you are the results of that. So that's kind of a 5-year look back.
That's terrific. Reflecting on the topic of people, you're obviously headquartered here. You're all over the country. You're in Europe. You're in Canada, doing business, but you're headquartered here. Growing up as a kid here, it was common knowledge. You graduate from high school or college. Yeah. If you're going to stay in Columbus, go to work at Nationwide Insurance because it's a really great employer. That's historic, absolutely historic. And you all, over time, have changed your business. Your business is different now than it was when I was a kid. But what is it about your leadership and your philosophy with respect to a company that has been around for 100 years as it relates to motivating those 28,000 people and guiding them, attracting them in the first place, but then retaining them? That's got to be hard. It doesn't happen by accident. How have you put your stamp on that reflects that number that you talked about earlier?
Well, I'm guessing there are people in this room that have lived this as well, right? So you're kind of leading up to it, and sometimes you make commitments to yourself. If I was ever king, right? Sound familiar to anybody? If I was ever CEO, I would change things, and here's what I would change. And then one day you look up and the board says it's you, and you're like, dang it. Now I got to follow through on all those promises that I made to myself. And some I published and put on the refrigerator with magnets. But I think the real key was, I think we were too complicated. And there's some Nationwiders in the back that lived through this with me. And my real focus was, let's break things down and simplify them. We had a mission statement that was almost 30 words long. The only people that knew the mission statement were the people interviewing to be the next CEO, right? And we said, we need people to be able to not only repeat it, but to live it. So we went from nearly 30 words to 9 words. Our mission, why we exist, to protect people, businesses, and futures with extraordinary care. 9 words. And so if you want to have some fun, if you see somebody with a lapel pin, first, always sing the jingle. We appreciate that. So Cindy and I were in an airport 2 weeks ago, and this group of kids came up and sang the jingle. And you put billions of dollars into a brand, and that'll happen. But I think it was the simplification. And it was the fact that we said, we're going to break things down and simplify it. First is our mission. That's what we're going to focus on. And then we're going to tell people what's most important in the following order. And the first one was, back to the topic of this session, it's people, right? We were going to attract and retain a world-class workforce. Number one, people. Everybody knows that, right? That's how it always starts, and that's how it always begins. Planning. We're going to break our planning down, and we're going to measure ourselves on a regular basis about what our results were, and we would change if and when we needed to, and then we're going to hold ourselves accountable from a performance standpoint to the highest echelon. One of the things you'll hear more and more about Nationwide in the future is a concept of a modern mutual, right? We're privately held, we're a mutual insurance company, and so we do the right things, right? So we're about the long ball, we're about our communities, we want to be able to give back, we have the values. We're proud of that, that's not going to end. But the other thing that we noticed is, as we got larger and larger and larger, the competition set changed. So at the end of 2023, we're the number 5 insurance and financial services company in the United States. I don't know, you grow $8.5 billion in 1 year, maybe that changes a little bit. But I do think it needed to have that clarity around it. So it was about people, it was about planning. The other was we're going to measure our performance compared to the best. And then the fourth was partnerships, right? So we're going to go a little bit deeper. And one of the things you might think about, and you'd be appropriate, you got billions of dollars sitting there. Wouldn't it make sense to do mergers and acquisitions? So we've done one. I can't go into a lot of detail on it. There will be more to follow, but it's not about mergers and acquisitions. It's about mergers, acquisitions, partnerships, and strategic alliances. So that's really what's driven some of the success that's out there. But at the end of the day, I think it's been people. It's been the engagement that we have. We increased communication to our associates in May of 2020, 800% compared to 1 year ago. And here's what happened. People said, even after we got through the majority of the COVID, are you going to continue to keep the communication up? I mean, we were having a 90-minute segment with all of our associates every Friday for the first part of the COVID, right? So that's a lot. We still are at 500%, and I think it was about clarity. What's our mission? What's our expectation? What are the performance numbers we're trying to get to, and who are our partners? And by the way, our partnerships include the community. So $34 million went through our foundation last year. Majority of it went to Central Ohio. The budget we have in place for this year is $40 million. As we do better, we want our communities to do better. And candidly, especially from food and housing, our neighbors are hurting, and we need to be part of the solution on that, Pat.
Well, Kirt, this is just a good reminder. You don't need to comment on what you just said. Most of it went to Central Ohio. This is what I tell legislators, and John Barrett, former chairman of this group, CEO of Western Southern, always talks about this. It's the value of a headquartered company being in your state. And so when my little girl, who's 16 now, our first travel team, I was walking on to Marathon Fields in Findlay, Ohio, and the parents were just oohing and awing about, wow, these girls are going to be playing under the lights and on a turf field, and that was a marathon-driven community. If Marathon wasn't headquartered in Findlay, that wouldn't happen. All the work that if you were in Des Moines, Iowa today, that investment would be in Des Moines, Iowa. Not that you're not investing in Des Moines, Iowa, but the point is most of it is.
Yeah, I think the other thing that I want to point out is the other thing that we really looked at is we owed our customers the best possible value. And so one of the things we looked at is we needed to remove expenses. So we took $1.3 billion of expenses out through year-end 2023 over a 3-year period, $1.3 billion. That's a lot. And then we've got another efficiency play underway that's about $400 million. So one of the things that you would have seen in conclusion of 2019, we had 21 campuses across the United States. Based on the business model we had, at the time it made sense. We basically have now moved to 3. Scottsdale, Arizona, Des Moines, Iowa, Columbus, Ohio. We have World Trade Center and some of the other things that we have smaller offices in. Columbus benefited from that. So the hiring in the future that takes place will take place more in those 3 areas than what it will in the other 21. By the way, the other thing is, the day that we sent 28,000 people home, we really sent about 22,500 home. We had 5,600 people who already worked permanently from home. You think about what we do, we need to be close to our members. We had people in all 50 states that were working permanently from home. So it wasn't anything new to us. It was just bigger numbers than what we had before. And our Success Flex, I think, is a big part of why our retention's there. And I get feedback from people. You should have people come into the office every single day, Monday through Friday. Why? Well, you need to watch them. Okay, I don't know if we hire the right people. We need to watch them. We do need to bring people together from time to time, right? And that is really, really important because we're about culture. It's about collaboration, communication, celebration. So we're doing that. But I also think as you look to the future, a lot of our associates, especially younger associates, a couple of people commented on that, they want that flexibility from time to time. And what we've told people is, as long as we get the mission done, as long as we accomplish our performance goals, we're going to continue to move forward on that. If that doesn't take place, it'll be done. So everybody knows that.
Let's talk technology. We heard earlier on water and energy how technology has changed for the better those businesses. When I think of AI today, I certainly don't think of financial services and insurance as tech-savvy focused businesses. What's happening with technology at Nationwide?
So Pat, your thoughts aren't alone, but they hurt my feelings.
Okay.
So you asked me to go back 5 years,
Yes.
right? Can I go back 15?
Sure.
So let's think about this. If you go back 15 years ago, basically the sales number that we had was close to $31 billion. So $31 billion. 15 years later, it's 68.5. The plan is to be about 72 billion. So 31 goes to 68.5. That was our high water mark. We actually had 38,000 associates 15 years ago. As of Thursday last week, we had 24,200. That's a big decrease. So the question is, how did that happen? And I would offer it was the investment we continually made in automation. And we talked a little bit earlier today about artificial intelligence. We've been in the artificial intelligence space 10 plus years. We've been in robotics, we've used data analytics and ponds and the reviews that take place there. And I would offer to you, generative AI is different than AI. So we've embraced generative AI as well. And before anybody gets overly concerned, here's what we did. We said, we think this is a really good thing. It's like nuclear fuel. If it's done correctly, it's really positive. So here's what we've done. We've assembled a blue team, and their job is to tell us everything that's awesome and how we can use generative AI even more. We've assembled a red team, and their job is to tell us why it's the devil's work, it's the worst possible thing that could ever happen. And when you put those two teams together, I think you land in a really good spot. I don't think that generative AI is coming for your jobs. I think that generative AI is coming to assist your jobs. So we've got some programs that you may or may not be aware of. We've got an OWL program that actually will take all the information from medical records, condense them, and provide them to the claims professional that's handling those things. It used to be that we would have someone support a senior person that kind of did those recaps, provided them to people. Now generative AI does it. By the way, probably does it better than what we used to do before, and allows our people, our associates, to really focus on kind of the meatiness of the job. I don't think anybody really wants to go back through a file and kind of recap what somebody else said. So we don't think that generative AI is coming for people's jobs. We think it's coming to assist with people's jobs, and we're all in. So we also hear from time to time in your space, oh, boring old insurance and financial services. God is my witness, I've not used a 3-part carbon form for a long, long time, right? And so I really think we've embraced it as a company, and we've benefited from that. Other people have as well. And you also will hear people that would say, now we're a technology company that sells insurance. We're not confused in any way. We're a protection company that uses technology to enable the process. And that frees up people for the most important things. And that's when you need to have a people connected in there some way. And if you think about what happens, tragedies will happen to Nationwide insurers today. People will lose loved ones. People will be in auto accidents. They need somebody to talk to. You cannot hold hands with a CRT, right? In a lot of cases, we're a counselor when people make those first calls that come in. So that's who we are, technology company. Enabled, but we're really a protection company at the end of the day.
So I was right. Just kidding.
Yeah.
So
You really got me going on that one, didn't you? Yeah.
You hinted at this, and I know you can't talk about mergers and acquisition, but how do you see change in the rest of this year, the rest of 2025, but beyond from where you sit?
Yeah. So I don't know if anybody else has this. If you don't, here's a thought. I have kind of this reflection file. And I have things I throw in there, and some of them are all haggard. But one of the things I have is a 1991, and it's from the Memorial Day Sunday paper. I have a full-page ad for Radio Shack. And I don't know if you know this or not, Pat is a huge Radio Shack fan.
Yeah.
But if you look back in the mid-'80s, what Radio Shack would tell you is, in the mid-'80s, there was a Radio Shack within 5 miles of every American. And you think back, small town Ohio, wherever, probably true. My dad had this card, you could go in once a month and get a free battery, right? We probably still have some of them. But my point is, if you look at that ad that I shared with you, here's what it talked about. Come on into Radio Shack, get yourself a calculator, right? Get yourself a DVR player, get yourself a video recorder, get yourself a calculator, get yourself a personal computer. I mean, the list goes on and on and on, and it's all this paraphernalia. Everybody here probably has a smartphone within 18 inches of their body, if you're an average American. Smartphones do all that. So I try to get those things out to keep us humble and keep us pushing forward. But I think it's more of the same, right? And I think for all of us, if we don't embrace what the future looks like, we'll get left behind. And so you can see my passion around generative AI. I think the future is changing from a technology standpoint, but I also think the world is changing. Today in America, 12,000 people turn age 65. That's going to continue to happen until the year 2030. The needs of that group of people have changed. We've got to be mindful of those changes. Property casualty, financial services, some of the things we've done in this all-state transaction are to embrace the future. And if we don't embrace the future, we'll get left behind. And I'm not going to have Nationwide be Radio Shack, Pat. I'm sorry, I know it's one of your favorite deals. So,
Still have the calculator, Radio Shack calculator. So your brand has got to be one of your most valuable assets, and you brought the eagle back. It's on your lapel there. Tell us about how that brand, what that brand means for you as you became the CEO. I mean, you've been with the company a long time, but it's got to be one of your most valuable assets.
yeah. So if you think about what differentiates companies, right? We all have our differentiation. I think it's 4 things from a Nationwide standpoint. The first would be our mutual structure, right? We can play the long ball. We can be good community citizens. We can have a caring culture. We're melding that with public company expectations. So number 1, mutual insurance company, but we're going to be a modern mutual as we move forward. Number 2 would be the intentional, diverse portfolio that we have. And here's what we've said. We've got a bucket of money. It's capital. We go to the 8 businesses, 4 of them in property casualty, 4 of them in financial services, and say, if you can return an appropriate return on risk-adjusted capital, we'll give you all the money that you need. If you can't, we'll hold back. Now, it's through cycle, right? Every once in a while you have a tough year. And I think it's made the big difference for us. So that would be number 2, intentional, diverse portfolio. Nobody looks like us. And every once in a while somebody goes, well, how about so-and-so or so-and-so or so-and-so? Yeah, they have this much property casualty, they have this much financial services. So of the $69 billion I talked about, $50 billion was actually in financial services. People still think about us as a auto and home company. That's great. We love that fact. But number 3 is the iconic brand, right? And so as you think about how Peyton comes into play, and thank you for watching the advertisements that are out there, Peyton Manning or Peyton Manning. By the way, we're going to sell that. And so anybody that's interested in owning that, Jimmy, we're going to sell that, and the money's going to go back to Nationwide Children's Hospital. So we'll keep you in the loop. But that iconic brand is really, really important to us, right? And it's just not Peyton Manning or I don't know if anybody watched the NFL draft. Saquon Barkley has now become a spokesperson along with Peyton. He's now Stay Calm Barkley. Did you see those ads, Jimmy? Did you like those? So we're keeping that alive along with Peyton as well. But it's just not the spokespeople. It's just not the ads that we run. It's how our people react and people perform and how our culture reacts. And, kind of the 4th bit on that would be our caring culture. And we've transitioned to a high-performing caring culture. And I think that's what makes the difference. So it's part of the pie, Pat, but it's just kind of one of the 4 things that we think are unique advantages that would be really, really hard to replicate.
You and Steve Steinhauer have stepped up here in Central Ohio to help lead the Columbus Partnership, one of our sister organizations that we collaborate with a lot. So you've worked with Kenny and now Jason as well. What do you see, and what has, broader than leading a 24,250 associate culture at Nationwide, what do you see from us in Ohio as it relates to economic development? How do we do a better job of keeping talent here? How do we attract new talent to Ohio so we can build a stronger business community and a stronger Ohio?
So a reinforcement to everybody, we've been here 99 years, right? So this is our home state, this is our hometown. We're really, really proud of Central Ohio and all of Ohio. So this is a big deal to us, right? And the investments that we put into the state of Ohio, one, risk-adjusted return on capital, but it's the right thing to do as well. So earlier today, we heard people talk about public-private partnerships. Pat, I actually think it's two of those things. I think sometimes there's public-private partnerships, and so public takes the lead, but I also think there's private-public partnerships. And if you think about those two different nuances, one's just taking the point on, the other one's a supporting role. I don't think anything ever gets done in economic development if you don't have public-private or private-public. And I think a lot of it comes back to what I learned from Pat when I called him on him in Washington, D.C. It's about communication, right? We all need to make the time, because we won't find the time, make the time, call on our elected officials, have an agenda, have a game plan, and explain why. Here's what we'd like to accomplish, and here's why it makes a difference in the state of Ohio. And I think we do a good job on that. I think we can take it, at Nationwide, we would say, let's take it to the next level. I think we can even do an even better job in that. Because at the end of the day, good paying jobs will solve a lot of issues in the state of Ohio and in Columbus, Ohio. And that's true for the United States as well, but our concentration's here.
Well, you couldn't answer that better. We talked about in our executive committee this morning, so I don't know if you had a bug in the room or something, but
Well, I wrote that down and gave it to Mary Ellen, so I'm glad she used it. But that's from the heart. I think that's true. And I think we've all got to make time, because we won't find time.
It does make a difference. Final question. You mentioned 2026 as you're 99 years old, 2026, 100 years old. Wow. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Tell us about that special occasion, what's going to happen.
So one of the things we're going to do is we'll have a little bit of a look back regarding the last 100 years. That's what you do when you celebrate those things. But we're going to surprise you a little bit. We're actually going to look forward a lot more. And we're going to think about what the future looks like, what future think would be, and what Nationwide could look like 100 years out. I think that's what great companies do. So we're going to celebrate what got us here, but we're going to spend even more time looking to the future and what the future needs to look like. At the end of the day, we have 15 million households that depend on us, right? We've got 24,200 associates, the other people that are traveling partners, as Kenny would call it, that we help in different ways. But I think 100 years from now, I really hope that we can all sit here and say, we still held on to these four unique things. We're a mutual insurance company, right? Modern mutual. But we still need to be able to make enough money to be able to keep the mission that we've made and be able to give back to our communities, make them better. I think what we look like in the future, if you think about what I shared with you, Nationwide Financial was $50 billion last year. 25% of what we did in 2024 at Nationwide Financial was new to us within the last 3 years. So that's where I get a little bit, hey, the stodgy insurance industry, man, we're changing at light speed and doing a lot of really, really good things, answering the simple question of what can we do in this space that benefits our members. And the iconic brand will continue. I don't know how long, we'll have Peyton forever, is what we hope. But at the end of the day, I think it's culture. I think it's the caring, high-performing culture that needs to continue. That'll take us into the future. And, for 100 years, it's always been about culture at Nationwide. It's about belonging, respect, and fairness. And I won't apologize to anybody because that's who our culture is. So,
That's awesome. Thank you for being an Ohio Business Roundtable member.
hey, appreciate it.
Thank you.